Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to SafeDefend Live. Are you willing to do what it takes when somebody's threatening your family? Well, apparently there was a deacon at a church this weekend that did just that, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Are you prepared to take the action that's necessary to protect your family? So, Doc, let's talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is a great case study. So about, I don't know, 3 days ago, there's a church outside of Detroit in a town called Wayne, Michigan. Name of the church was Cross Point Church. They were in the middle, either at the beginning or somewhere just started their service. People, were coming to church and things like this. And so a man shows up and he's wearing camouflage, tactical looking gear. He's holding a AR-15 rifle. He's got another pistol, extended magazine, multiple mags, hundreds of rounds, and he's basically walking in on the church property. And one of the deacons of the church, who was in his vehicle, saw the guy and ran him over. Now, he did get off a few rounds before that happened, right? So the guy started to shoot into the church. The deacon ran him over. And then shortly after he ran him over, he was still a threat. Apparently, he was still showing threatening behavior of some sort. And then one of the other parishioners who is on their security team took out a pistol and killed him. And so the background on the suspect is that he is the son of a woman who is a longtime parishioner of that church. And I think he was even baptized, if I'm not mistaken there, if I read that right. And so it kind of, brings a couple questions to mind, right? So we always talk about training, but what are you predisposed to do? And that's really the question. Because you can have training and good training, but if you don't have the predisposition to take action, that's an issue, right? And so you got to kind of compare that with. I like to make a comparison as far as training goes, where that was back in, I think, in 2008, somewhere in there, 2006, the Capital Gazette newspaper shooting where 5 people died. And of course, this is a completely different type of scenario. However, guy comes in to the newspaper. He had previously, they did some bad press on him. He tried to get it taken care of. He went years trying to fix it. Didn't work out. He comes in, barricades one of the back door, comes in the front door, and he ends up killing 5 people. Now, in that case, we were talking about training. Right. So the people that were killed had some training in escape, evade, and engage, right? The run, hide, fight stuff, right? And the one woman had enough training to know that if I sense danger, I need to find a door and exit. So she took the escape approach. Problem is that she didn't know. She wasn't trained on what to do beyond what happens if the door isn't locked, because he had barricaded it from the outside. And because she didn't train through that possible scenario beyond just go to the door, get out and run, go to the door, I can't get out, and she froze. And she was actually killed while she was trying to open up the door. And it was kind of like trying to open the door, and she froze, and then he killed her. There were 2 other people that died in that, and in that one, they tried to hide, right? They evaded and didn't understand the concept of cover and concealment. So they're hiding under a table that the suspect could still see them. And so they were killed. And then one woman she was predisposed to act, and she attacked the person, but had no training really in that. And as she was walking towards him or coming after him, however that worked out, she was shot and killed. So we have kind of double things going on here. You've got, number one, is your training good? Is your training look for through different contingencies, right? Because the fact that you're going to escape, things can happen, right? What happens if the door you want to go through that you practice doesn't open? where's your alternate exit? Do you know where that door leads to when you go outside? Are you going to be trapped in an inside fence or something? So to know all that stuff, very important. But on top of that is your predisposition. And so I think it's a good comparison on the cases on looking at training from the standpoint that the training has got to be effective training, not just one way make assumptions, but have contingencies. But then secondly, what are you predisposed to do? Okay, so you're in a vehicle, you see somebody shooting, and do you have the presence of mind to use that vehicle? So in that case, it was a brilliant tactic, was to use the vehicle. That was the most effective way to stop that guy. Again, this deacon, I don't know who he was, but he had tremendous predisposition and knew enough that, hey, I see a guy with a rifle, I need to protect my church, and he runs him over. And then the next guy who saw the guy get run over still saw him as a threat and then took a different action. So we have good training, good preparation, good predisposition. And so unfortunately, when you have those situations that you can't prevent, this is how you prevail. And I think both of these are really good examples of the importance of effective training. And are you predisposed to do what you need to do in these situations?
Well, you bring up a really good point. Just because you're trained doesn't mean you have what it takes to take somebody else's life. It is not an easy decision. It's something you have to wrestle with and determine before the moment you're challenged. There's a lot of people that have concealed carry licenses that will never be able to pull the gun and shoot anybody.
Right.
Or they'll pull the gun and they'll freeze and they'll get used against them. There's tons of people out there like that because you have to go through the ethical scenario to realize that you're going to take somebody's life. And with all the training in the military we do, we talk about that when we're going through our training and upbringing and what are you willing to do. I remember an ethics professor asked me in a class when I was in college, she said, your mission today is to take out a bus full of nuns on a bridge. Are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of scenarios that go with that. And it's most people go, well, I'm not going to kill a bunch of nuns. Well, you got to know the rest of the story. Is that going to end the war? Is that going to save thousands of other lives? What is the impact of me taking this action to make sure the threat is taken out, to stop bad people from doing really bad things? And from experience, I can tell you, it's not an easy decision to make. It's not an easy decision to put bombs on target in command and control when you have to take people out. But if you've resolved in your mind that what you're doing is proper and ethical to save other people's lives, it makes it a lot easier. So, for my teachers out there and administrators and everybody out there, and this wonderful man that saved hundreds of lives at that church that day, have those conversations with other people. Talk about how you feel. What does that look like? What is it going to take for you to be able to make that life and death decision for another human being? Because it's a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal. If you go back to if you hunt, and if you don't hunt, that's fine. But I hunt, and I taught my children to hunt. The first hunting trip for my son and his first animal he took, it was a big deal. And we made it a big deal because it's a life and we understand what happened and what are we doing with that meat and how are we going to prepare it and how are all that goes into this decision process. So, you can have the training, but you've also got to have the ethical discussion with yourself about, am I willing to make that decision? You're muted, Doc.
You got me? Sorry.
You're good. There you go. You're back.
Sorry, I have
technical difficulties.
This is what happens when you get PhDs having to figure out hard things like microphones on computers, right? Pile higher and deeper, No, the only thing I wanted to mention was, in these situations where you have, these very quick decisions you have to make, the thing is that, in these situations, the other thing you got to realize is that no one's coming. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Because if nothing would have happened in that church situation, that suspect easily could have gone in and killed hundreds of people within minutes. And certainly the police are going to show up. But even if they had a 2-minute, 3-minute response, which is crazy fast, and many of them are that good, right? Especially in bigger cities. You don't consider the things like the time it takes for them to be notified and be sent in that direction. And then once they get there, they still got to find the suspect. So you're adding, another 10, 11, 12 minutes to that 3-minute response. And if you really figure that within a minute or two, an open church with a guy with an AR-15 and hundreds of rounds, it is literally over before the police can even arrive. And so even more important in these situations, is your training effective? Have you tested it? Have you exercised it? Have you role played it? And most importantly, are you going to be able to do what you need to do when the time comes?
Yeah, but an auditorium full of people with a semi-automatic weapon is a scary thing, because even an untrained person can pop off a bunch of rounds in 3 minutes. So, we talk about safety and security all the time and being prepared. Part of that being prepared is ask yourself, am I willing to do this? Can I muster up the strength to do this? And if you can't, it's okay. If you're not wired that way, I get it. I totally understand, but that's something you got to work through before you get that scenario, because it's too late when it happens, and you will end up getting killed.
Especially if you let yourself get into a role like being in church security, and you really haven't had that discussion with yourself. Are you really predisposed? Because if you're not, you shouldn't be in that role, and that's okay.
Facts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great discussion today, Doc. Yeah. I know you've been a little under the weather. I hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
So with that, SafeDefend Live, Doc and Dave, we are out of here.
Have a great weekend.